welcome you all, and I'm so glad to see that Hyderabad is in full attendance, especially the ladies. Adab. I'd like to present a bouquet to our Honorable Member of Parliament and Mrs K Kavita, and of course, Dr Shashi Tharoor. We are here today to launch India Shastra, the 14th book written by Dr Shashi Tharoor.
Before we begin, we would like to do a ceremonial unwrapping of the book. I'd like to request Mr. Palam Raju, Honorable Member of Parliament, Honorable Minister of our country, and a true patriot to please come up. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Ms. Lakshmi Manchu, and of course, ma'am, Ms. Kavita, please come up. We're going to do the unwrapping of the book and then have the book presented to the Honorable Member of Parliament.
Welcome, Mr. Tharoor, to Hyderabad.
Thanks, Kavita.
I hope you've had a wonderful time at Falaknuma.
You've got a great city that you're representing in Parliament.
It is a wonderful town, and sometime around maybe all of us can show you a much better Hyderabad.
Great.
Yeah, so India Shastra is your latest book, and you've written about 13 other books, and few of them completely deal with India. And this particular book, I have tried to cover all the articles, but I couldn't read the whole of it. But then since anybody ever looks at you, we kind of always are reminded about foreign policy.
Thank you, Kavita. No, in fact, that's a very fair question because he does make it sound, doesn't he, as if everything is about how many $1 billion of investment he can bring in from each country he goes to. And obviously foreign policy is more than that. But yes, it is also that. And to some degree, for many years in the past, our foreign policy had appeared to be detached from the practical concerns of our development. There was a very concrete change brought about by the UPA when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh actually started articulating a view of foreign policy in the service of the country's development.
My question has to do with civil society and your chapter in which you describe Locke, Hobbes, de Tocqueville. You even referred to Anna Hazare and the AAP and what it represents as a seismic shift in India. But most of all, you referred to one of my favorite authors, Amartya Sen, and deliberative democracy. If this is how civil society works, should it play a role in lawmaking, and what role should that be?
It's a tough one. That's why the essay is somewhat lengthier than many of the others in the book, because the whole question of civil society really came into our public consciousness with the Anna Hazare movement. And those who said that civil society must play a definitive role in shaping, in those days, the Jan Lokpal Bill, were entering somewhat dangerous territory, because who appoints you as representatives of civil society? Yourselves. These are all ultimately self-appointed leaders. They seem to have vindication from the amount of television attention they're getting. And therefore the crowds that are turning up to various Maidans in prominent cities to support them. But where does their legitimacy come from other than their own self-anointment and the blessings of the media? Legislation in any democracy is written by elected representatives who have a fair claim to be representing the people. And those are, very bluntly, the MPs. The MPs have done the hard yards to actually get the public to put them where they are in Parliament, and they ought to be the one writing the laws. So my argument is civil society has every right to make its voice heard. And civil society includes these mass agitations, but also organized NGOs. The media itself is part of civil society, and so on. And everyone can express their views and let those who make laws understand what these views are.
The question that I have has to do with India Inc. and the youth specifically. At the age of 19, you wrote an article with the backdrop of emergency, and you spoke about independence, and you spoke about the sense of identity and patriotism. Today, you speak about the thrust of Indian economy and industry. You talk about Tata, you talk about GVK, and you talk about all these other companies going abroad and sort of promoting India and business in India as a very positive step, but also taking business to these countries. What role do you envision the youth and opportunities for the youth have in this national identity and future of our country in this area?
What can industry and the private sector and our big companies do to engage young people in their international ventures? You know, the French, and I've written about this in one of my essays in this book, the French have a scheme under which the government provides incentives and even some subventions to their companies to take young French students, usually just out of high school or just out of university, in sort of internship type positions in French companies' overseas operations.
What do you think about the creation of smaller states like Telangana, and how does that affect Indian federalism?
Well, I am in favor. I mean, my friend Pallam and I have discussed this in a specific case, but I'm in favor in principle of smaller states simply because our states have become very much larger than they were. You know, when India first became independent, the entire country's population was 330 million. Kavita, do you think the government is going to be receptive?
Kalikesh knows better. I don't think so. I haven't seen that kind of positive sense, at least in this Lok Sabha. So.
I'm afraid Kavita is right, you know, that you may have to bring the UPA back into power next time and we'll see what we can do.
You've had your chance. You never did it. Give me a break. 10 years.
Last question was by A.U. Singhdeo, a member of parliament in the Raj Sabha, a veteran minister of Orissa, whose young son Kalikesh Singhdeo is also a member of parliament. Raj Sabha MP asking a Lok Sabha MP along with his other friend Lok Sabha MP, former ministers, industrialists, journalists, students, and of course myself and my mother and all of you here. This is what makes our country great, is that we can have such debates and we can discuss such things. They have said that there are many forms of violence, none greater than the violence of institutional indifference towards the suffering of those least well off. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, we reaffirm that commitment. Suffering will not continue on our watch. I'd like to thank all these members of parliament, all the representatives of government and various forms of life, and all our friends who have come to support us, for showing your commitment to this country, which is all very neatly and very eloquently, if I might add, written in India Shastra. It's available here, and if you'd like to, please give a round of applause for all the people who've spoken, for organizing. Our wonderful guests who've flown from all over. But I'd like to thank the Trident for being so courteous to us, and of course, everyone else who's been a part of this. Mr. Puri, your note.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Very, very inspiring. And you know, as a professional and as a citizen, there are lots of very, very nice things and a lot of introspection that one, you know, this will drive me to introspect a lot. And I was surprised to hear back from him, and also very, very happily surprised to see him back at the Trident where I was in Chennai. So thank you so much. Lovely to have you all, ladies and gentlemen. And ma'am, thank you so much once again for putting this together. Thank you, Aalim. Thank you.